Question 1. The efficiency study reveals that the IBM SPSS modeler analysis has identified several key drivers impacting customer retention. Which of the following approaches best communicates these findings to business partners to facilitate strategic decision-making? Option A. Offering a list of potential business improvements that are generally known to improve customer retention, without directly linking them to the specific findings of the analysis. Option B. Providing a detailed report of all statistical tests performed, including p-values and confidence intervals for every variable in the model. Option C. Explaining the complex mathematical formulas and algorithms used within IBM SPSS modeler to derive the retention drivers. Option D. Presenting a summary of the most impactful drivers, their estimated effect on retention, and clear, actionable recommendations for business partners to address these drivers. Correct answer is D. Presenting a summary of the most impactful drivers, their estimated effect on retention, and clear, actionable recommendations for business partners to address these drivers. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in business analytics, where a project's success hinges on effectively communicating complex findings to diverse stakeholders with varying levels of technical understanding. The challenge lies in translating the output of IBM SPSS Modeler, a powerful data analysis tool, into actionable insights that resonate with business partners who may not be data scientists. The need for clarity, accuracy, and adherence to the specific regulatory framework of the C2020-012 IBM SPSS Modeler Data Analysis for Business Partners V2 exam is paramount. Misinterpretation or oversimplification can lead to poor strategic decisions, wasted resources, and potential noncompliance with internal or external guidelines that govern data usage and reporting. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves presenting the key findings from the IBM SPSS modeler analysis in a clear, concise, and business-oriented manner. This means focusing on the so what of the data, what are the implications for the business partner's operations, strategies, and decision-making. It requires translating statistical outputs into understandable business metrics and actionable recommendations. This approach aligns with the spirit of the C2020-012 exam, which aims to equip business partners with the ability to leverage data analysis for business advantage. By focusing on the business impact and providing clear, actionable steps, the analysis becomes a valuable tool for driving improvements and achieving business objectives, thereby demonstrating proficiency in applying data analysis within a business context. Incorrect approaches analysis. Presenting raw statistical outputs without interpretation or context is professionally unacceptable because it fails to bridge the gap between technical analysis and business understanding. This approach ignores the primary objective of data analysis for business partners: to inform and guide business decisions. It can lead to confusion, misinterpretation, and a lack of confidence in the analytical process, potentially violating implicit or explicit expectations for clear communication and value delivery. Focusing solely on the technical intricacies of the IBM SPSS modeler algorithms used, without relating them to business outcomes, is also professionally flawed. While understanding the methodology is important for the analyst, it is not the primary concern for business partners. This approach demonstrates a lack of stakeholder awareness and an inability to translate technical work into business value, which is a core competency expected of business partners. It risks alienating the audience and failing to achieve the project's business objectives. Providing overly generalized recommendations that are not directly supported by the specific findings of the IBM SPSS modeler analysis is another failure. This can lead to decisions based on assumptions rather than data, undermining the credibility of the analysis and potentially leading to ineffective or detrimental business actions. It also suggests a lack of rigor in the analytical process and a failure to draw precise conclusions from the data, which is a fundamental ethical and professional failing in data analysis. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a stakeholder-centric approach. This involves first understanding the audience's needs, knowledge level, and objectives. Before presenting findings, consider what questions they are likely to ask and what decisions they need to make. The process should involve 1. Clearly defining the business problem and objectives. 2. Selecting appropriate analytical techniques within IBM SPSS modeler to address the problem. 3. Executing the analysis rigorously. 4. Critically interpreting the results in the context of the business problem. 5. Synthesizing findings into clear, actionable insights tailored to the audience. 6. Presenting these insights in a format that is easily understood and directly supports decision-making, ensuring all conclusions are directly traceable to the data and analysis performed. Question 2. Process analysis reveals that a business partner is eager to utilize IBM SPSS modeler to identify high-value customers for a targeted marketing campaign. They have expressed a preference for a specific classification algorithm they have used successfully in the past for a different type of problem. As the data analyst, what is the most professional and effective approach to ensure the project's success and deliver actionable insights? Option A. Immediately proceed with implementing the classification algorithm that the business partner has suggested, as their prior experience indicates its potential effectiveness. Option B. Prioritize the use of the simplest possible modeling technique in IBM SPSS Modeler to ensure rapid deployment, even if it means sacrificing potential insights into customer value. Option C. Focus exclusively on achieving the highest possible predictive accuracy using the most complex modeling technique available in IBM SPSS Modeler, without significant consideration for interpretability or the specific business context. Option D. Conduct a thorough evaluation of various classification and segmentation algorithms within IBM SPSS Modeler, considering their suitability for identifying high-value customer segments based on the current dataset and business objectives, and then recommend the most appropriate technique, even if it differs from the partner's initial preference. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough evaluation of various classification and segmentation algorithms within IBM SPSS Modeler, considering their suitability for identifying high-value customer segments based on the current dataset and business objectives, and then recommend the most appropriate technique, even if it differs from the partner's initial preference. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data analysis projects where a business partner is seeking to leverage IBM SPSS Modeler for predictive modeling. The core difficulty lies in ensuring that the chosen modeling approach aligns with the business objective of identifying high-value customers, while also adhering to the principles of responsible and ethical data usage, as implicitly guided by the C2020-012 curriculum. The pressure to deliver a solution quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise analytical rigor or data integrity. The business partner's familiarity with a specific technique, even if not the most appropriate, adds another layer of complexity, requiring the analyst to balance client expectations with best practices. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the business problem and a systematic evaluation of various modeling techniques available within IBM SPSS Modeler. This includes exploring different algorithms and their suitability for the specific task of customer segmentation and value prediction. The emphasis on understanding the underlying assumptions and limitations of each model, and then selecting the one that best fits the data and the business objective, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the C2020-012 curriculum's focus on applying analytical techniques effectively and responsibly. By considering factors like interpretability, scalability, and the potential for bias, the analyst demonstrates a commitment to delivering a robust and actionable solution, rather than just a technically proficient one. This methodical approach ensures that the chosen model is not only statistically sound, but also practically relevant and ethically defensible. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to immediately implement the modeling technique the business partner is familiar with, without a proper assessment of its suitability for the current problem. This fails to uphold professional responsibility by potentially delivering a suboptimal solution. It bypasses the critical step of analytical due diligence, which is fundamental to data analysis. This could lead to inaccurate predictions, wasted resources, and a failure to meet the true business objective, potentially violating implicit guidelines within the C2020-012 framework that emphasize effective application of tools. Another incorrect approach would be to focus solely on achieving the highest possible accuracy metric, without considering the interpretability or the potential for unintended consequences of the model. While accuracy is important, a black box model that cannot be explained to the business partner or that might inadvertently discriminate against certain customer segments is professionally unsound. This overlooks the broader implications of data analysis and could lead to ethical breaches if the model's outputs are used in a discriminatory manner, which is contrary to the responsible use of data analysis principles taught in the C2020-012 curriculum. A third incorrect approach would be to overcomplicate the modeling process by selecting the most advanced or complex technique available, without a clear justification based on the business problem or the available data. This can lead to models that are difficult to understand, maintain, and deploy, and may not offer significant advantages over simpler, more appropriate methods. It demonstrates a lack of practical judgment and a failure to align analytical effort with business value, a key consideration in professional data analysis. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such scenarios by first deeply understanding the business problem and its objectives. This involves active listening and asking clarifying questions to the business partner. Next, they should conduct an exploratory data analysis to understand the characteristics of the data. Based on this understanding, they should then evaluate a range of appropriate modeling techniques with an IBM SPSS modeler, considering their strengths, weaknesses, and suitability for the specific problem. The selection process should prioritize a balance between predictive power, interpretability, and ethical considerations. Finally, the chosen approach should be clearly communicated to the business partner, along with its rationale and expected outcomes, fostering collaboration and ensuring alignment. Question 3. Regulatory review indicates that a business partner is tasked with analyzing customer purchasing patterns to identify opportunities for targeted marketing campaigns. The available dataset contains detailed transaction histories, including customer names, addresses, and purchase details. The business partner is under pressure to deliver preliminary findings within 48 hours, which approach best balances the need for timely insights with regulatory compliance and ethical data handling. Option A. Request an aggregated or anonymized version of the transaction data that removes all personally identifiable information before commencing the analysis, focusing on identifying broad purchasing trends and product affinities. Option B. Develop a complex predictive model using the raw transaction data without explicitly considering data privacy implications, assuming that the client has already ensured all necessary consents are in place. Option C. Immediately begin analyzing the raw transaction data, including all personally identifiable information, to identify customer segments and their purchasing habits, with the intention of anonymizing the data later if required. Option D. Proceed with analyzing the raw data, focusing on identifying individual customer behaviors and preferences, and then manually exclude any data that appears overly sensitive before presenting the findings. Correct answer is C. Immediately begin analyzing the raw transaction data, including all personally identifiable information, to identify customer segments and their purchasing habits, with the intention of anonymizing the data later if required. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a business partner to balance the immediate need for actionable insights with the ethical and regulatory imperative to ensure data privacy and the integrity of analytical models. The pressure to deliver results quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise these fundamental principles. Careful judgment is required to navigate the tension between business demands and responsible data handling. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and compliant methodology by first understanding the business objective and then selecting appropriate, anonymized, or aggregated data. The business partner adheres to the principles of data minimization and privacy by design, which are often embedded in data protection regulations. This ensures that the analysis is both relevant and ethically sound, preventing potential breaches of confidentiality and misuse of sensitive information. The subsequent validation of the model's performance against business objectives, using appropriate metrics, demonstrates a commitment to delivering reliable and trustworthy insights, aligning with the professional standards expected of IBM business partners. An incorrect approach that involves using personally identifiable information without explicit consent or a clear legal basis for processing would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This directly contravenes data protection laws that mandate lawful processing and consent, potentially leading to severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of client trust. Another incorrect approach, such as relying on a model without validating its performance or understanding its limitations, risks providing misleading or inaccurate insights. This undermines the credibility of the business partner and the value of the analysis, failing to meet professional obligations for accuracy and due diligence. A third incorrect approach, focusing solely on technical model complexity without considering the business context or data limitations, is also professionally unacceptable as it fails to deliver practical, actionable, and relevant business intelligence, thus not fulfilling the core purpose of the engagement. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the business problem and its associated data requirements. This should be followed by a rigorous assessment of data privacy implications and compliance with relevant regulations. The selection of analytical methods and data sources must be guided by these considerations. Model development should be iterative, with continuous validation against business objectives and ethical standards. Transparency with stakeholders regarding data usage, model limitations, and potential risks is crucial throughout the process. Question 4. The audit findings indicate a business partner with access to client data via IBM SPSS modeler has been making independent decisions regarding the application of analytical models to this data without a documented rationale or explicit approval process. Which of the following represents the most appropriate approach for the organization to address this situation and ensure responsible data utilization? Option A. Expedite the development of new analytical models by the business partner, focusing on speed to market rather than detailed review of their application rationale. Option B. Rely on the business partner's established track record and expertise to continue making independent decisions, assuming their judgment is sound. Option C. Implement a mandatory review and approval process for all proposed analytical model applications by the business partner, requiring a clear justification of business need and a documented assessment of data privacy and ethical implications. Option D. Advise the business partner to seek external data ethics consultants for guidance on their model application decisions whenever they encounter uncertainty. The correct answer is C. Implement a mandatory review and approval process for all proposed analytical model applications by the business partner, requiring a clear justification of business need and a documented assessment of data privacy and ethical implications. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the business partner, while having access to sensitive client data through IBM SPSS modeler, is not a direct employee and therefore operates under a different set of direct oversight and accountability structures. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring that the business partner's decision-making process regarding the use of this data aligns with the ethical standards and implicit regulatory expectations governing data handling, even if not explicitly codified in a direct employment contract. The need for a robust decision-making framework is paramount to prevent potential misuse, breaches, or noncompliance, which could have significant reputational and legal ramifications for both the business partner and the organization providing access to the data. The correct approach emphasizes a structured, documented, and ethically grounded decision-making process that prioritizes client confidentiality and data integrity. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that any decision involving client data is not arbitrary, but is based on a clear rationale that considers potential impacts and adheres to principles of responsible data stewardship. This approach is implicitly supported by general data protection principles and ethical guidelines that govern the responsible use of information, even in the absence of specific contractual clauses for third-party partners. The focus on understanding the why behind the data usage and its alignment with business objectives, while also considering potential risks and ethical implications, forms the bedrock of responsible data analysis. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the business partner's perceived expertise or past performance fails to establish a clear, auditable decision-making process. This creates a significant regulatory and ethical failure by allowing subjective judgment to override objective risk assessment and adherence to data handling principles. It opens the door to potential biases or oversights that could lead to data misuse or breaches, violating the implicit trust placed in the partner. Another incorrect approach, which prioritizes speed and efficiency over thoroughness, represents a critical ethical lapse. In data analysis, especially with client information, expediency should never come at the expense of due diligence and ethical consideration. This approach risks overlooking crucial data privacy concerns or compliance requirements, leading to potential regulatory penalties and reputational damage. A third incorrect approach, which involves seeking external validation without a clear internal framework, is also problematic. While external consultation can be valuable, it should supplement, not replace, a well-defined internal decision-making process. Relying solely on external advice without a structured internal review can lead to inconsistent application of principles and a lack of accountability. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that involves clearly defining the problem or objective, identifying all relevant stakeholders and their interests, gathering and analyzing all pertinent information, including data, policies, and ethical considerations, evaluating potential courses of action against established criteria, including regulatory compliance and ethical principles, selecting the best course of action, implementing it, and finally, reviewing the outcome. For situations involving third-party data access, this framework must explicitly include a review of the partner's proposed data usage against agreed-upon terms, data privacy policies, and ethical guidelines, ensuring transparency and accountability throughout the process. Question 5. Benchmark analysis indicates that a business partner is evaluating the implementation of IBM SPSS Modeler for enhanced business analytics. Which of the following approaches to assessing the potential consequences of this implementation best aligns with regulatory requirements and professional best practices for data analysis? Option A. A comprehensive assessment that meticulously documents data flows, evaluates potential risks to data privacy and security, and considers operational and business consequences, all while adhering to the specific regulatory guidelines for the C2020-012 exam. Option B. An assessment that primarily focuses on the technical capabilities of IBM SPSS Modeler to identify features that can accelerate data processing and reporting, with minimal attention to data handling implications. Option C. An assessment that prioritizes identifying opportunities for significant cost reductions in data infrastructure and personnel, even if it means compromising on certain data security protocols. Option D. An assessment conducted only after the IBM SPSS Modeler solution has been fully deployed and is in operational use to identify any issues that arise during the live environment. The correct answer is A. A comprehensive assessment that meticulously documents data flows, evaluates potential risks to data privacy and security, and considers operational and business consequences, all while adhering to the specific regulatory guidelines for the C2020-012 exam. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data analysis projects where a business partner is tasked with implementing a new data analysis solution using IBM SPSS Modeler. The challenge lies in ensuring that the impact assessment, a critical phase for understanding the consequences of adopting the new technology, is conducted thoroughly and ethically, adhering to the specific regulatory framework for the C2020-012 IBM SPSS Modeler Data Analysis for Business Partners V2 exam. The business partner must balance the technical implementation with the broader implications for data privacy, security, and operational efficiency, all within the defined compliance boundaries. A superficial or biased impact assessment can lead to significant regulatory breaches, operational disruptions, and reputational damage. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive and objective assessment of the potential impacts of implementing the IBM SPSS Modeler solution. This includes identifying all relevant stakeholders, meticulously documenting data flows, evaluating potential risks to data privacy and security, and assessing the operational and business consequences. Crucially, it requires aligning the assessment with the specific regulatory guidelines applicable to the C2020-012 exam's jurisdiction, which likely emphasizes principles of data protection, responsible data use, and due diligence in technology adoption. This approach ensures that potential issues are identified and mitigated proactively, demonstrating a commitment to compliance and responsible business practices. Incorrect approach is analysis. Focusing solely on the technical capabilities of IBM SPSS Modeler without a thorough impact assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This oversight can lead to noncompliance with data protection laws by failing to identify and address risks related to data handling, storage, and processing. It also represents an ethical lapse by potentially exposing sensitive data to unauthorized access or misuse. Prioritizing cost savings above all other considerations, including data privacy and security, is another critical failure. While cost-effectiveness is important, it must not supersede regulatory obligations or ethical responsibilities. This approach risks violating data protection regulations by cutting corners on essential security measures or data anonymization techniques, leading to potential data breaches and severe penalties. Conducting an impact assessment only after the IBM SPSS modular solution has been fully implemented is a reactive and fundamentally flawed strategy. This approach violates the principle of proactive risk management, which is a cornerstone of most regulatory frameworks. It means that potential negative impacts, including privacy violations or security vulnerabilities, may have already occurred, making remediation more difficult and costly, and potentially leading to non-compliance from the outset. Professional reasoning. Professionals undertaking data analysis projects, especially those involving new technologies like IBM SPSS Modeler, must adopt a structured and risk-aware approach. The decision-making process should begin with a clear understanding of the project's objectives and the relevant regulatory landscape. A robust impact assessment should be an integral part of the project lifecycle, conducted early and iteratively. This involves 1. Identifying all potential impacts. Consider technical, operational, financial, legal, ethical, and reputational aspects. 2. Stakeholder engagement. Involve all relevant parties to gather diverse perspectives and ensure buy-in. 3. Risk identification and mitigation. Proactively identify potential risks, particularly concerning data privacy and security, and develop mitigation strategies. 4. Regulatory alignment. Ensure all assessment activities and proposed solutions strictly adhere to the applicable regulatory framework. 5. Documentation and review. Maintain thorough documentation of the assessment process and findings, and subject it to internal and, where necessary, external review. By following this framework, professionals can ensure that technology implementations are not only effective, but also compliant, ethical, and sustainable. Question 6. Implementation of a customer segmentation strategy using IBM SPSS Modeler for a retail business partner requires selecting an appropriate analytical technique. The business partner wants to identify distinct customer groups to tailor marketing campaigns, but has limited statistical background. Which approach best balances analytical rigor with the need for interpretable and actionable insights for the business partner? Option A. Directly applying a predictive model like a neural network to forecast individual customer lifetime value, and then segmenting based on these predictions, without first establishing clear, distinct behavioral groups. Option B. Implementing a complex hierarchical clustering method with a large number of clusters to capture very fine-grained customer distinctions, without providing detailed explanations of the cluster profiles. Option C. Employing a k-means clustering algorithm to group customers based on purchasing behavior, followed by a clear, visual summary of the characteristics of each cluster, highlighting key differences in spending habits and product preferences. Option D. Utilizing a principal component analysis, PCA, to reduce the dimensionality of customer data, and then applying a simple rule-based classification to assign customers to segments, focusing on the mathematical transformations rather than the business meaning of the components. Correct answer is C. Employing a k-means clustering algorithm to group customers based on purchasing behavior, followed by a clear, visual summary of the characteristics of each cluster, highlighting key differences in spending habits and product preferences. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data analysis projects where a business partner needs to leverage IBM SPSS Modeler for a critical business decision. The challenge lies in ensuring that the chosen analytical approach is not only technically sound, but also aligns with the business partner's understanding and the practical constraints of their operational environment. The pressure to deliver insights quickly can sometimes lead to overlooking fundamental analytical principles or the specific needs of the end user, creating a risk of misinterpretation or inappropriate application of the results. Careful judgment is required to balance speed with accuracy and relevance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the business problem and the data available, followed by selecting an appropriate IBM SPSS modeler technique that directly addresses the business objective. This includes considering the nature of the data, e.g., categorical continuous, the desired outcome, e.g., prediction, segmentation, association, and the interpretability of the model for the business partner. For instance, if the goal is to predict customer churn, a classification model like logistic regression or decision trees might be suitable, with a focus on explaining the drivers of churn in clear business terms. This approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the business value and actionable insights derived from the analysis, ensuring that the IBM SPSS modeler output directly supports the business partner's decision-making process. It adheres to the principle of delivering relevant and understandable results, which is crucial for effective business partnerships. Incorrect approach is analysis. An incorrect approach would be to blindly apply a complex or advanced modeling technique without a clear understanding of its suitability for the business problem or the business partner's ability to interpret the results. For example, using a deep learning model for a simple classification task where a decision tree would suffice and be far more interpretable would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to deliver actionable insights and can lead to misinterpretation or distrust in the analytical process. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on achieving high statistical accuracy metrics without considering the business implications of the model's predictions or the underlying assumptions. This can result in a model that is technically impressive but practically useless or even misleading for the business partner. Furthermore, selecting a technique based on personal preference or familiarity rather than the specific requirements of the business problem is a failure to apply professional judgment and could lead to suboptimal or incorrect conclusions. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a problem-solving framework that begins with a deep dive into the business context and objectives. This involves active listening to the business partner to understand their needs, constraints, and desired outcomes. Next, an assessment of the available data is crucial to determine its quality, relevance, and suitability for different analytical techniques. Based on this understanding, the most appropriate IBM SPSS modeler technique should be selected, prioritizing interpretability and actionability for the business partner. The process should involve iterative refinement and validation, with regular communication and feedback loops with the business partner to ensure alignment and understanding. This structured approach ensures that the data analysis project delivers tangible business value and strengthens the professional relationship. Question 7. Governance review demonstrates that a recent IBM SPSS modeler analysis for a key business partner shows a slight upward trend in customer engagement metrics. However, the statistical significance of this trend is very low, falling below the commonly accepted threshold for conclusive findings. The business partner is eager to leverage this perceived positive outcome in upcoming negotiations for a renewed contract. How should the business partner proceed with presenting these findings? Option A. Present the observed trend as a positive development, emphasizing the direction of change, while clearly stating that the statistical significance is currently low and further monitoring is recommended. Option B. Exaggerate the observed trend, highlighting it as a definitive success and a strong indicator of improved customer engagement, without mentioning the low statistical significance. Option C. Focus solely on other, more statistically robust metrics from the analysis, omitting any mention of the customer engagement trend to avoid diluting the positive message. Option D. Advise the business partner to wait for a future analysis that might yield statistically significant results before discussing any engagement metric improvements. The correct answer is A. Present the observed trend as a positive development, emphasizing the direction of change, while clearly stating that the statistical significance is currently low and further monitoring is recommended. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves a conflict between the desire to present a positive outcome and the ethical obligation to report data accurately and transparently. Business partners are often incentivized by performance metrics, and there can be pressure to manipulate or selectively present data to meet targets or secure future business. The core ethical dilemma lies in deciding whether to highlight a statistically insignificant but potentially favorable trend, or to adhere strictly to the rigorous statistical standards expected in data analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data integrity and adherence to established analytical methodologies. By acknowledging the limitations of the analysis and the lack of statistical significance, the business partner upholds the principles of honesty and objectivity. This aligns with the implicit ethical guidelines of professional data analysis, which demand that conclusions be supported by robust evidence and that uncertainty be communicated clearly. In the context of IBM SPSS modeler, this means respecting the output of the statistical models and not overstating findings. An incorrect approach that involves presenting the trend as a definitive positive outcome without qualification would be a significant ethical failure. This misrepresents the data and could lead to flawed business decisions based on unsubstantiated claims. It violates the principle of professional integrity by creating a misleading impression of success. Another incorrect approach, such as withholding the analysis entirely to avoid delivering potentially disappointing news, also constitutes an ethical lapse. This failure to communicate relevant findings, even if they are not overwhelmingly positive, prevents stakeholders from making informed decisions and erodes trust. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the analytical results, including their statistical significance. They should then consider the potential impact of communicating these results, both positive and negative. Transparency and honesty are paramount. If results are inconclusive or not statistically significant, this must be clearly communicated, along with an explanation of what that means. The focus should always be on providing accurate insights, even if they are not what stakeholders might hope for. This builds long-term credibility and fosters a culture of data-driven decision-making based on reliable information. Question 8. The performance metrics show a significant increase in the time taken to complete data preparation tasks with an IBM SPSS modeler, impacting project delivery timelines. A business partner suggests streamlining the process by removing the data validation step for all incoming datasets, arguing it will save considerable time. Another partner proposes adopting a new, unproven data transformation add-on that promises faster processing, without a formal evaluation of its impact on data integrity or compliance. A third suggests implementing a standardized template for all data preparation workflows, which would reduce the need for custom scripting and potentially speed up execution. Which of these proposed optimizations best aligns with a professional approach to process improvement in a regulated business environment? Option A. Implementing a standardized template for all data preparation workflows to reduce custom scripting and potentially speed up execution. Option B. Adopting a new, unproven data transformation add-on that promises faster processing, without a formal evaluation of its impact on data integrity or compliance. Option C. Relying on anecdotal evidence from team members about which steps are slowest to prioritize optimization efforts. Option D. Removing the data validation step for all incoming datasets to save considerable time. The correct answer is A. Implementing a standardized template for all data preparation workflows to reduce custom scripting and potentially speed up execution. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the drive for efficiency with the need for robust, auditable data analysis processes. Business partners are often under pressure to deliver results quickly, which can lead to shortcuts. However, in regulated environments, especially those involving data analysis for business decisions, adherence to established processes and documentation is paramount. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing process optimization that genuinely improve efficiency without compromising data integrity, regulatory compliance, or the ability to explain and reproduce the analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven evaluation of the existing process. By identifying bottlenecks and areas for improvement through detailed analysis, it ensures that any proposed changes are well-founded and likely to yield tangible benefits. This aligns with principles of good governance and operational excellence, which are often implicitly or explicitly required by regulatory frameworks that demand transparency and accountability in business operations. The focus on documenting changes and validating their impact provides an audit trail, crucial for demonstrating compliance and for future process refinement. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of introducing errors or non-compliance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing the number of steps without understanding the purpose of each step is professionally unacceptable. This can lead to the elimination of critical validation or quality control steps, thereby compromising data integrity and potentially leading to flawed business decisions. Such an approach risks regulatory noncompliance if the omitted steps are mandated or implied by guidelines for data handling and analysis. Another incorrect approach, which involves implementing changes based on anecdotal evidence or the preferences of a few individuals, is also professionally unsound. This lacks the rigor required for process optimization in a business context. It can lead to subjective improvements that are not universally beneficial or may even introduce new problems. Ethically, it fails to ensure that the optimization serves the broader business objectives and stakeholder interests, which often include reliable and accurate data. A further incorrect approach, such as adopting a new tool without a thorough assessment of its compatibility with existing workflows and regulatory requirements, is a significant risk. While new tools can offer efficiency gains, their implementation must be carefully managed to avoid disrupting established, compliant processes or introducing new vulnerabilities. This can lead to data inconsistencies, security breaches, or a failure to meet reporting obligations, all of which carry regulatory and ethical implications. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the objectives of process optimization, which include efficiency, accuracy, compliance, and reproducibility. Professionals should begin by mapping the current process, identifying key performance indicators, and gathering data on performance. Potential optimizations should be evaluated against these objectives, considering their impact on data integrity, regulatory adherence, and the overall business value. Pilot testing and phased implementation, coupled with continuous monitoring and documentation, are essential for successful and compliant process improvement. Question 9. Operational review demonstrates that a business partner implementing IBM SPSS modeler for a client is facing pushback from the client regarding the time required for thorough data validation before proceeding with model building. The client is eager to see initial results and views the validation phase as an unnecessary delay. What is the most professional and ethically sound approach for the business partner to manage this situation? Option A. Inform the client that data validation is a mandatory step and refuse to proceed with the analysis until they agree to the full validation timeline, without offering any further explanation or compromise. Option B. Agree to significantly shorten the data validation process to appease the client, assuming the risks associated with potentially inaccurate data are acceptable for this particular project. Option C. Proceed with the data analysis and model building as quickly as possible to meet the client's immediate demand for results, deferring any comprehensive data validation until after the initial findings are presented. Option D. Engage the client in a detailed discussion about the critical importance of data validation for ensuring the accuracy and reliability of analytical outcomes, highlighting how it mitigates risks of flawed insights and supports regulatory compliance, while exploring potential efficiencies in the validation process that do not compromise its integrity. The correct answer is D. Engage the client in a detailed discussion about the critical importance of data validation for ensuring the accuracy and reliability of analytical outcomes, highlighting how it mitigates risks of flawed insights and supports regulatory compliance, while exploring potential efficiencies in the validation process that do not compromise its integrity. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a business partner, tasked with deploying IBM SPSS modeler for data analysis, encounters resistance to adopting a new, more robust data validation process. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for project completion and client satisfaction with the long-term imperative of data integrity and regulatory compliance. The business partner must navigate the client's desire for expediency against the potential risks of proceeding with unvalidated data, which could lead to flawed insights, incorrect business decisions, and potential breaches of data governance policies. The professional challenge is to effectively communicate the value of the validation process and secure buy-in without alienating the client or compromising project quality. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves proactively engaging the client to explain the critical role of data validation in ensuring the accuracy and reliability of the SPSS modeler outputs. This includes clearly articulating how robust validation aligns with best practices for data analysis, and importantly, any relevant data governance frameworks or industry-specific regulations that mandate data accuracy. By demonstrating the tangible benefits such as reduced risk of erroneous conclusions, improved decision-making, and enhanced trust in the analytical results, the business partner builds a case for the necessity of the validation step. This approach fosters collaboration, educates the client on the importance of data quality, and establishes a foundation for a successful and compliant implementation. It prioritizes a thorough and ethical data handling process, which is paramount in business analytics. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with the analysis without addressing the client's concerns about data validation is professionally unacceptable. This approach ignores the fundamental principle of data integrity, which is a cornerstone of reliable business intelligence. It risks generating misleading insights, leading to poor strategic decisions, and potentially violating data governance policies or regulatory requirements that emphasize data accuracy and trustworthiness. This failure to uphold data quality standards constitutes a significant ethical lapse and a breach of professional responsibility. Attempting to bypass or significantly shorten the validation process to meet the client's timeline, without a clear and documented justification that addresses the residual risks, is also professionally unsound. While client satisfaction is important, it should not come at the expense of data integrity. This approach prioritizes expediency over accuracy, creating a high risk of flawed analysis. It demonstrates a lack of commitment to best practices and could lead to reputational damage for both the business partner and potentially IBM SPSS modeler if the flawed insights are attributed to the tool's capabilities. Failing to clearly communicate the rationale behind the validation process and its importance to the client is a missed opportunity for professional engagement and education. While not directly causing data inaccuracy, this passive approach can lead to misunderstandings and continued resistance, undermining the long-term adoption of sound data practices. It suggests a lack of proactive client management and an inability to effectively advocate for essential analytical procedures. Professional reasoning. Professionals in data analysis must adopt a proactive and communicative approach. When faced with client resistance to essential processes like data validation, the decision-making process should involve 1. Understanding the client's perspective. Identify the root cause of their resistance, e.g., time constraints, perceived complexity, lack of understanding. 2. Articulating value and risk. Clearly explain the benefits of the process, accuracy, reliability, compliance, and the risks of skipping it, flawed insights, poor decision. Regulatory issues. 3. Proposing solutions. Offer options for streamlining the process where possible without compromising its integrity, or suggest phased implementation. 4. Documenting decisions. Ensure all agreements and deviations from standard procedures are documented, along with their justifications and accepted risks. 5. Prioritizing data integrity. Uphold the highest standards of data quality and ethical data handling, even if it requires more time or difficult conversations. Question 10. Investigation of the most appropriate method for sharing analytical findings derived from customer data with external business partners, considering the regulatory framework for data analysis within the IBM SPSS Modeler Data Analysis for Business Partners V2 context, to ensure both actionable insights and adherence to data privacy mandates. Option A. Share raw, identifiable customer data with business partners for their direct analysis. Option B. Share insights derived from data collected for unrelated purposes without explicit consent for this new use. Option C. Share aggregated insights that might allow for the re-identification of individuals through inference. Option D. Share anonymized and aggregated data insights, ensuring no individual can be identified. The correct answer is D. Share anonymized and aggregated data insights, ensuring no individual can be identified. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data analysis for business partners, balancing the need for actionable insights with the ethical and regulatory obligations surrounding data privacy and security. Business partners, by their nature, operate in a commercial context where sharing data can be perceived as a competitive advantage or a necessary step for collaboration. However, the IBM SPSS Modeler Data Analysis for Business Partners V2 framework, operating within a specified regulatory environment, assumed to be a jurisdiction with robust data protection laws, e.g., GDPR-like principles, as is common in professional certifications, mandates strict adherence to data handling protocols. The challenge lies in discerning when data sharing or analysis crosses the line from legitimate business intelligence to a violation of privacy or security mandates, potentially leading to reputational damage, legal penalties, and loss of trust. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a rigorous, documented process of data anonymization and aggregation before any insights are shared with business partners. This aligns with the core principles of data protection regulations, which emphasize minimizing the risk to individuals whose data is being processed. Anonymization removes direct and indirect identifiers, making it impossible to re-identify individuals. Aggregation combines data points so that individual contributions are not discernible. This approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the regulatory requirement to protect personal data while still enabling the extraction of valuable business insights. It demonstrates a commitment to ethical data stewardship and builds trust with both data subjects and business partners by showing that data is handled responsibly and securely. This proactive measure prevents potential breaches and ensures compliance with the spirit and letter of data privacy laws. Incorrect approaches analysis. Sharing raw, identifiable customer data with business partners, even with the intention of generating insights, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach directly violates data privacy principles by exposing individuals' personal information without explicit consent for such sharing, leading to potential breaches of confidentiality and unauthorized use. It also fails to adhere to the principle of data minimization, as identifiable data is shared when aggregated or anonymized data would suffice. Providing aggregated insights that still allow for the potential re-identification of individuals through sophisticated inference or by combining with other publicly available data is also professionally unacceptable. While appearing to be anonymized, this approach falls short of true anonymization and can still lead to privacy violations if individuals can be identified. This demonstrates a lack of diligence in ensuring robust data protection and a failure to fully understand the nuances of anonymization techniques, potentially leading to unintended privacy harms. Sharing insights derived from data that was collected for purposes other than those being analyzed or shared with business partners without appropriate consent or legal basis constitutes a violation of purpose limitation principles. This ethical failure undermines the trust placed in the data analyst and the organization, as it suggests data is being repurposed without transparency or authorization, which is a common trigger for regulatory scrutiny and penalties. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes data protection and regulatory compliance from the outset. This involves 1. Clearly defining the purpose of data analysis and the intended audience for the insights. 2. Conducting a thorough data privacy impact assessment to identify potential risks. 3. Implementing robust data anonymization and aggregation techniques validated for effectiveness. 4. Establishing clear data sharing agreements with business partners that outline permissible uses and security requirements. 5. Maintaining comprehensive documentation of all data processing and sharing activities for auditability. 6. Regularly reviewing and updating data handling policies and procedures to align with evolving regulations and best practices. This systematic approach ensures that business objectives are met without compromising ethical standards or legal obligations. Question 11. What factors determine the responsible interpretation and application of insights derived from IBM SPSS modeler analysis when sensitive demographic data is involved, ensuring both business value and ethical compliance? Option A. The extent to which the model's predictive accuracy is maximized, irrespective of fairness metrics or potential biases identified in the data. Option B. The identification of statistically significant correlations within the data, without further consideration for their practical implications or potential for misinterpretation. Option C. The speed at which the analysis can be completed and insights delivered to the business partner, prioritizing rapid deployment over thorough validation. Option D. A comprehensive evaluation of model performance that includes fairness assessments across demographic groups, a critical examination of data limitations and potential biases, and a clear understanding of the regulatory landscape governing data usage. The correct answer is A. The extent to which the model's predictive accuracy is maximized, irrespective of fairness metrics or potential biases identified in the data. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in data analysis for business partners, ensuring that the insights derived from IBM SPSS Modeler are not only accurate but also ethically sound and compliant with relevant regulations. The professional challenge lies in balancing the drive for business advantage through data with the imperative to protect customer privacy and avoid discriminatory practices, especially when dealing with sensitive demographic data. Careful judgment is required to interpret model outputs and recommend actions that are both effective and responsible. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the data's limitations and potential biases before drawing conclusions or making recommendations. This involves scrutinizing the model's performance metrics, not just for predictive accuracy, but also for fairness across different demographic groups. By actively seeking to identify and mitigate potential biases, the analyst upholds ethical standards and regulatory compliance, such as those that might be implied by data privacy laws or anti-discrimination statutes, by ensuring that the analysis does not inadvertently lead to unfair outcomes for protected groups. This proactive stance prevents the misuse of data and fosters trust with clients and end users. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on maximizing predictive accuracy without considering fairness or potential bias is professionally unacceptable. This failure can lead to regulatory breaches if the model's outputs are used to make decisions that discriminate against certain groups, violating principles of equal opportunity. Another incorrect approach that ignores the potential for spurious correlations or overfits the model to the training data risks generating misleading insights. This can result in poor business decisions based on unreliable analysis, damaging the credibility of the business partner and potentially leading to financial losses or reputational harm. Furthermore, an approach that fails to document the analytical process and assumptions leaves the analysis open to scrutiny and makes it difficult to validate or reproduce, which is a fundamental aspect of professional data analysis and can be a compliance issue if audit trails are required. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the business objective and the data available. Second, perform exploratory data analysis to understand the data's characteristics, including potential biases. Third, select and build appropriate models using IBM SPSS Modeler, paying attention to model validation techniques that assess both accuracy and fairness. Fourth, critically interpret the model results, considering the business context and potential ethical implications. Fifth, document the entire process, including assumptions, limitations, and mitigation strategies for identified biases. Finally, communicate findings and recommendations clearly, highlighting any caveats or potential risks associated with their implementation. Question 12. When evaluating the output of an IBM SPSS Modeler analysis for a business partner, which of the following approaches best ensures regulatory compliance and ethical data handling, assuming the analysis involves customer data? Option A. Focusing solely on the technical execution of complex analytical models in IBM SPSS Modeler, assuming that the client has already addressed all data privacy concerns. Option B. Conducting the analysis on identifiable customer data and then attempting to anonymize the results post-analysis, only if specific privacy concerns are raised by the client. Option C. Proceeding with the analysis of raw, identifiable customer data directly within IBM SPSS Modeler, relying on the client's internal data governance policies to ensure compliance. Option D. Prioritizing the anonymization and aggregation of customer data within IBM SPSS Modeler before conducting detailed analysis to identify trends and patterns. The correct answer is D. Prioritizing the anonymization and aggregation of customer data within IBM SPSS Modeler before conducting detailed analysis to identify trends and patterns. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in data analysis for business partners, ensuring that the insights derived from IBM SPSS Modeler are not only accurate but also compliant with relevant data privacy regulations. The professional challenge lies in balancing the business need for actionable insights with the imperative to protect sensitive customer data. Business partners, acting as intermediaries, must demonstrate a thorough understanding of these dual responsibilities. Careful judgment is required to identify and mitigate risks associated with data handling and analysis, particularly when dealing with potentially sensitive information. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to the specified regulatory framework, which in this context is assumed to be aligned with general principles of data protection and responsible data handling, as would be expected for IBM business partners. This involves a proactive stance on data anonymization and aggregation before analysis, thereby minimizing the risk of exposing personally identifiable information, PI. This aligns with the ethical obligation to safeguard customer privacy and the regulatory requirement to process data lawfully and fairly. By focusing on aggregated and anonymized data, the partner demonstrates a commitment to both data security and the integrity of their analytical output, ensuring that insights are derived from patterns rather than individual records. An incorrect approach that involves direct analysis of raw, identifiable customer data without proper anonymization or aggregation poses significant regulatory and ethical failures. This directly contravenes data protection principles that mandate minimizing data exposure and processing only necessary information. Such an approach could lead to breaches of privacy, unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information, and potential legal repercussions for both the business partner and their client. Another incorrect approach, which relies solely on the client's assurance of data compliance without independent verification or implementation of protective measures, demonstrates a lack of due diligence. This abdicates responsibility and fails to uphold the professional standard of ensuring data integrity and privacy throughout the analytical process. A third incorrect approach, focusing exclusively on the technical execution of SPSS modeler features, without considering the data's origin and sensitivity, overlooks the foundational requirement of responsible data stewardship. This technical-centric view neglects the broader ethical and regulatory landscape, leading to potential noncompliance. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the data's sensitivity and the applicable regulatory requirements. This should be followed by implementing appropriate data handling protocols, such as anonymization and aggregation, before commencing any analytical work. Continuous assessment of risks and adherence to best practices in data privacy should be integrated throughout the project lifecycle. When in doubt, seeking clarification from the client regarding data usage policies and consulting relevant regulatory guidelines is paramount. Question 13. Compliance review shows that a business partner has developed a predictive model for customer churn using IBM SPSS Modeler. The partner is eager to present the findings to the sales team for immediate action. Which of the following approaches to validating the model's performance best aligns with professional best practices and ensures the reliability of the insights? Option A. The partner relies on the model's statistical significance of individual predictors as the sole indicator of its overall effectiveness. Option B. The partner reevaluates the model's performance using the same training dataset to confirm its ability to capture the historical patterns. Option C. The partner skips formal validation steps, trusting the model's logical structure and the data scientist's expertise. Option D. The partner uses a portion of the original dataset that was not used during model training for a final, independent evaluation of the model's predictive accuracy. The correct answer is D. The partner uses a portion of the original dataset that was not used during model training for a final, independent evaluation of the model's predictive accuracy. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the need for efficient data analysis with the imperative of maintaining data integrity and ensuring that the analytical outputs are not inadvertently biased or misleading. Business partners, while skilled in their domain, may not always possess the deep statistical understanding required to identify subtle issues in model development or validation, leading to potential misinterpretations or inappropriate application of results. The pressure to deliver timely insights can exacerbate this, potentially leading to shortcuts that compromise best practices. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a structured, iterative validation process that includes both internal and external checks. This aligns with best practices in data analysis and model governance, ensuring that the model's performance is robust and generalizable. Specifically, using a separate, unseen dataset for final validation is a cornerstone of preventing overfitting and providing an unbiased estimate of the model's predictive accuracy. This practice directly addresses the risk of a model performing well on the data it was trained on but failing in real-world application. Furthermore, documenting the validation steps and rationale provides transparency and auditability, crucial for regulatory compliance and stakeholder trust. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of deploying a flawed model, which could lead to poor business decisions and reputational damage. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves relying solely on in-sample performance metrics for validation. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it provides an overly optimistic view of the model's capabilities. It fails to account for the possibility of overfitting, where the model has learned the noise in the training data rather than the underlying patterns. This can lead to the deployment of models that perform poorly on new, unseen data, resulting in financial losses or incorrect strategic decisions. Another incorrect approach is to skip formal validation entirely, assuming that the model's intuitive appeal or the data scientist's experience is sufficient. This represents a critical failure in due diligence and professional responsibility. It bypasses essential quality control mechanisms designed to ensure the reliability and validity of analytical outputs. Such an approach is ethically questionable as it exposes stakeholders to unverified and potentially inaccurate insights, undermining the credibility of the analysis and the business partner. A third incorrect approach involves validating the model using the same data used for training and initial exploration, perhaps by simply rerunning metrics on the training set. This is fundamentally flawed as it does not provide an independent assessment of the model's predictive power. The model has already seen this data, and its performance metrics will reflect its ability to memorize the training data, not its ability to generalize to new observations. This practice is a direct contravention of sound statistical methodology and can lead to the deployment of ineffective or even detrimental models. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes data integrity, model robustness, and transparent reporting. This involves understanding the limitations of analytical techniques and the potential for bias. When developing and validating models, it is essential to follow established statistical principles, such as the use of independent validation datasets. Furthermore, a commitment to clear documentation and communication of model performance, including its limitations, is paramount. Professionals should proactively seek to understand the business context and potential downstream impacts of their analytical work, ensuring that their recommendations are grounded in reliable and rigorously validated insights. This proactive, principled approach fosters trust and ensures that data analysis serves as a reliable foundation for strategic decision-making. Question 14. The evaluation methodology shows that a business partner intends to use IBM SPSS modeler to analyze customer purchasing patterns to identify opportunities for targeted marketing campaigns. The partner has not explicitly considered the potential for these campaigns to disproportionately affect certain demographic groups, nor have they documented any steps to assess or mitigate such risks. Which of the following represents the most professionally responsible approach to this situation? Option A. Proceed with the analysis as planned, assuming that any targeting will be based on objective purchasing behavior and therefore inherently fair. Option B. Recommend conducting a thorough impact assessment to identify potential biases in the data and model outputs and to develop strategies for fair and equitable targeting. Option C. Advise the partner to focus solely on maximizing campaign effectiveness based on predictive accuracy, as regulatory compliance for this specific type of analysis is not clearly defined. Option D. Suggest that the partner perform a quick review of demographic data to ensure no overtly discriminatory targeting is occurring without a formal assessment process. The correct answer is B. Recommend conducting a thorough impact assessment to identify potential biases in the data and model outputs and to develop strategies for fair and equitable targeting. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the business partner is seeking to leverage IBM SPSS modeler for impact assessment without a clear understanding of the regulatory implications of data usage and analysis, particularly concerning potential biases and fairness in the outcomes. The core issue is ensuring that the analytical approach aligns with ethical data handling and regulatory compliance, even if not explicitly mandated by a specific piece of legislation in this context. The challenge lies in proactively identifying and mitigating risks associated with data-driven decision-making before they manifest as discriminatory or unfair practices. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough and documented impact assessment that considers potential biases in the data and the model's outputs. This aligns with the general principles of responsible data analysis and the ethical considerations that underpin the use of analytical tools like IBM SPSS Modeler. By proactively identifying potential disparate impacts on different demographic groups, the business partner can implement mitigation strategies, ensuring fairness and preventing unintended negative consequences. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining trust and adhering to the spirit of data protection and ethical AI principles, even in the absence of explicit, prescriptive regulations for this specific type of impact assessment. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical accuracy of the model, without considering the fairness of its outcomes, fails to address the ethical and potential regulatory risks. This could lead to the deployment of a system that inadvertently discriminates against certain groups, potentially leading to reputational damage and future regulatory scrutiny, even if no specific regulation was violated at the outset. Another incorrect approach, which dismisses the need for an impact assessment due to a lack of explicit regulatory mandate, demonstrates a reactive rather than a proactive risk management strategy. This leaves the business vulnerable to unforeseen consequences and fails to uphold professional standards of due diligence in data analysis. A third incorrect approach, which relies on anecdotal evidence or superficial checks for bias, lacks the rigor required for a robust impact assessment and is unlikely to uncover subtle or systemic issues, thereby failing to meet professional standards for responsible data analysis. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the potential uses and impacts of the analytical model. This involves identifying stakeholders, potential data sources, and the intended outcomes. A critical step is to conduct a comprehensive impact assessment, considering fairness, bias, and potential disparate impacts, even if not explicitly required by law. This assessment should be documented and used to inform the development and deployment of the analytical solution. If potential issues are identified, mitigation strategies should be developed and implemented. This proactive, risk-aware approach ensures that the analytical solution is not only technically sound, but also ethically responsible and aligned with best professional practices. Question 15. The control framework reveals a business partner is tasked with using IBM SPSS Modeler to analyze customer transaction data for fraud detection. Given the sensitive nature of the data, which of the following approaches best ensures regulatory compliance and ethical data handling while enabling effective fraud analysis? Option A. Implement robust data anonymization and pseudonymization techniques on the customer data asterisk before asterisk importing it into IBM SPSS Modeler for fraud analysis. Option B. Analyze only a small, randomly selected subset of customer data without any specific privacy-enhancing transformations, assuming the limited scope mitigates risk. Option C. Conduct the fraud analysis directly on the raw, identifiable customer data, relying solely on IBM SPSS Modeler's built-in access controls to protect the information. Option D. Obtain explicit, granular consent from each customer for the specific fraud detection analysis being performed, even if it significantly delays the project timeline. The correct answer is C. Conduct the fraud analysis directly on the raw, identifiable customer data, relying solely on IBM SPSS Modeler's built-in access controls to protect the information. Explanation. The control framework reveals a scenario where a business partner is tasked with analyzing sensitive customer data using IBM SPSS Modeler to identify potential fraud patterns. The challenge lies in balancing the need for effective fraud detection with the stringent regulatory requirements for data privacy and security, particularly concerning personally identifiable information, PI. This situation demands a deep understanding of data governance principles and the specific compliance obligations relevant to the business partner's operating jurisdiction, which for this exam is assumed to be governed by general data protection principles, aligned with common regulatory frameworks like GDPR or CCPA, without specifying a particular country. The correct approach involves implementing robust data anonymization and pseudonymization techniques asterisk before asterisk commencing the fraud analysis in SPSS Modeler. This ensures that the raw PII is either removed or transformed into a less identifiable form, thereby minimizing the risk of unauthorized access or disclosure during the analytical process. This aligns with the principle of data minimization and purpose limitation, fundamental to most data protection regulations. By working with anonymized or pseudonymized data, the business partner can conduct thorough analysis while adhering to legal and ethical obligations to protect customer privacy. This proactive measure is considered best professional practice as it builds trust with customers and avoids potential legal repercussions and reputational damage. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the analysis using raw, identifiable customer data and relying solely on access controls within SPSS modeler to protect it. This fails to adequately address the inherent risks associated with processing sensitive information. Regulatory frameworks mandate that data protection measures should be embedded in the design of systems and processes, privacy by design, and by default. Relying only on access controls is insufficient as it does not mitigate the risk of accidental disclosure, internal misuse, or breaches of the analytical environment itself. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the need for data transformation and proceed with the analysis, arguing that the insights gained are paramount. This demonstrates a disregard for data privacy regulations, which prioritize the protection of individual rights over the unmitigated pursuit of business objectives when sensitive data is involved. Such an approach would likely lead to significant regulatory penalties and a loss of customer confidence. The professional reasoning process should involve a risk-based assessment. Before any data analysis begins, the professional must identify the type of data being used, its sensitivity, and the relevant legal and regulatory obligations. This should be followed by designing an analytical workflow that incorporates appropriate data protection measures, such as anonymization or pseudonymization, at the earliest possible stage. If these measures are not feasible or sufficient, the professional must escalate the concern to ensure compliance before proceeding. Continuous monitoring and adherence to data governance policies are also crucial throughout the analytical lifecycle. Question 16. The evaluation methodology shows that a business partner is primarily concerned with achieving the highest possible accuracy in predicting customer churn, even if the underlying drivers of churn become less interpretable. The analyst is considering two primary approaches, one that optimizes for predictive accuracy using a complex ensemble method, and another that uses a more interpretable model to understand the key factors contributing to churn, even if its overall predictive accuracy is slightly lower. Which approach best aligns with professional data analysis standards for business partners? Option A. Employ a complex ensemble method that maximizes predictive accuracy, as this directly addresses the business partner's stated primary concern. Option B. Focus on a simpler model that is easy to explain, regardless of its predictive performance or ability to uncover churn drivers. Option C. Select the method that requires the least amount of data per processing, as efficiency is paramount for business partners. Option D. Prioritize understanding the key factors contributing to churn with an interpretable model, even if predictive accuracy is marginally lower, to ensure actionable insights and transparency. Correct answer is D. Prioritize understanding the key factors contributing to churn with an interpretable model, even if predictive accuracy is marginally lower, to ensure actionable insights and transparency. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because a business partner is requesting a specific analytical approach that, while potentially yielding a desired outcome, may not align with the most robust or ethically sound data analysis practices. The challenge lies in balancing client expectations with the professional obligation to employ methods that ensure data integrity, model validity, and ultimately, reliable business insights. Careful judgment is required to steer the analysis towards best practices without alienating the business partner. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the scientific rigor and interpretability of the analytical model. By advocating for a method that allows for clear understanding of variable relationships and model performance, the analyst upholds the principles of transparency and accountability in data analysis. This aligns with the implicit regulatory expectation within a professional framework like IBM SPSS Modeler Data Analysis for Business Partners V2, which emphasizes delivering reliable and justifiable analytical outcomes. The focus on understanding the underlying drivers of customer churn, rather than simply achieving a specific prediction threshold, ensures that the insights derived are actionable and can inform strategic business decisions. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on maximizing a single predictive metric without understanding the contributing factors is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of transparency and potential for misinterpretation. If the model is a black box, it becomes difficult to explain to stakeholders why a particular prediction is made, hindering trust and the ability to implement effective interventions. This can lead to regulatory or ethical concerns if decisions based on such a model result in unfair or discriminatory outcomes, even if unintentional. Another incorrect approach that involves manipulating data to force a specific outcome, even if it improves a metric, represents a severe ethical and professional failure. This undermines data integrity and can lead to misleading conclusions, potentially causing significant financial or reputational damage. Such actions violate the core principles of honest and objective data analysis. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a clear communication strategy. First, understand the business partner's objective. Second, explain the strengths and limitations of various analytical approaches, framing them in terms of business impact and reliability. Third, propose a primary analytical strategy that adheres to best practices, while acknowledging alternative methods and their potential trade-offs. Finally, be prepared to justify the chosen methodology with reference to its ability to provide actionable, interpretable, and defensible insights, aligning with the spirit of professional data analysis. Question 17. Strategic planning requires a thorough understanding of the ethical and regulatory landscape before embarking on data analysis projects. A business partner requests the development of a predictive model to identify high-potential clients using existing customer data. What is the most responsible initial step to take in addressing this request? Option A. Immediately begin building a predictive model using all available customer data to identify patterns indicative of high potential. Option B. Consult internal data governance policies and relevant data protection regulations to understand consent requirements and ethical considerations for predictive modeling. Option C. Define high potential based on common industry definitions and proceed with model development, assuming implicit consent for analytical purposes. Option D. Focus on the technical aspects of model building, ensuring the algorithm can accurately predict client behavior and address ethical concerns later if they arise. The correct answer is A. Immediately begin building a predictive model using all available customer data to identify patterns indicative of high potential. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in data analysis for business partners, balancing the need for actionable insights with the ethical and regulatory obligations surrounding data privacy and responsible AI use. The business partner's request for a predictive model that identifies high-potential clients without explicit consent for this specific analytical purpose raises significant concerns. The challenge lies in interpreting high potential and ensuring that the data used and the model's output do not lead to discriminatory practices or violate privacy regulations. The pressure to deliver a solution quickly for a business partner can lead to shortcuts that compromise ethical standards and legal compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the data governance policies and relevant regulations, specifically focusing on consent, data minimization, and the ethical implications of predictive modeling. This aligns with the principles of responsible data handling and AI deployment. By prioritizing a review of existing policies and regulations, the analyst ensures that any proposed solution adheres to legal requirements and ethical best practices, such as those outlined in data protection laws that mandate clear consent for data processing and prohibit discriminatory outcomes. This proactive stance prevents potential legal repercussions and builds trust with clients and stakeholders by demonstrating a commitment to responsible data utilization. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with model development without first understanding the regulatory landscape and data governance policies is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This approach risks violating data privacy laws by using data without appropriate consent for the intended analytical purpose. It also opens the door to potential bias and discrimination if the definition of high potential is not carefully scrutinized and validated against fairness principles. Furthermore, developing a model based on assumptions about data usage without explicit authorization can lead to a breach of trust and contractual obligations with the data subjects or providers. Developing a model that categorizes clients based on inferred potential without a clear, documented, and compliant definition of that term is also problematic. This can lead to subjective and potentially biased classifications, which could have adverse consequences for the clients categorized. It bypasses the crucial step of defining the analytical objective in a way that is both business relevant and ethically sound, potentially leading to misinterpretations and misuse of the model's output. Focusing solely on the technical feasibility of building a predictive model without considering the ethical implications and regulatory constraints is a critical oversight. This approach prioritizes technical achievement over responsible innovation. It ignores the potential for the model to be used in ways that could harm individuals or groups, or to violate privacy rights, thereby failing to uphold the principles of ethical AI and data stewardship. Professional reasoning. Professionals in data analysis must adopt a risk-aware and ethically grounded approach. The decision-making process should begin with a comprehensive understanding of the project's objectives, the data available, and the applicable regulatory framework. This involves 1. Identifying and understanding all relevant data protection laws and internal data governance policies. 2. Clarifying the precise definition and intended use of high potential with the business partner, ensuring it is objective, justifiable, and compliant. 3. Assessing the data for potential biases and ensuring that consent for its use in predictive modeling is obtained and documented where required. 4. Prioritizing the development of models that are explainable, fair, and transparent. 5. Documenting all decisions, justifications, and compliance checks throughout the project lifecycle. This systematic approach ensures that analytical solutions are not only effective, but also ethical, legal, and aligned with business partner expectations for responsible data practices. Question 18. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a business partner is eager to implement a newly developed predictive model in IBM SPSS modeler to optimize customer retention strategies. However, preliminary validation suggests the model exhibits higher accuracy on a specific demographic segment, with a tendency to underpredict churn for another. What is the most professionally responsible approach to proceed? Option A. Recommend a phased implementation of the model, clearly communicating its performance variations across different customer segments and providing confidence intervals for its predictions, while also proposing further refinement. Option B. Suggest that the business partner independently validate the model's performance on their own data before any implementation, without providing detailed insights into the observed segment-specific performance. Option C. Present the model's overall accuracy metrics to the business partner and recommend immediate implementation, highlighting its potential to improve retention. Option D. Advise the business partner to disregard the performance variations and focus solely on the model's average accuracy, as the overall prediction rate is acceptable for strategic planning. The correct answer is C. Present the model's overall accuracy metrics to the business partner and recommend immediate implementation, highlighting its potential to improve retention. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in data analysis projects where business partners are eager to leverage predictive models for strategic decision-making. Core of the challenge lies in ensuring that the insights derived from IBM SPSS Modeler are not only technically sound, but also ethically and regulatorily compliant, particularly concerning the responsible use of data and the transparency of analytical processes. The business partner's desire for immediate, actionable insights, while understandable, must be balanced against the need for rigorous validation and a clear understanding of the model's limitations. The correct approach emphasizes a phased and transparent deployment strategy. This involves clearly communicating the model's capabilities and limitations to the business partner, ensuring they understand the confidence intervals and potential biases. It also necessitates a robust validation process that goes beyond simple accuracy metrics, considering the model's performance across different segments of the data and its potential impact on various stakeholder groups. This aligns with best practices in data governance and ethical AI, promoting responsible innovation and mitigating risks of unintended consequences. The regulatory framework for data analysis, while not explicitly detailed here, generally mandates transparency, fairness, and accountability in the application of analytical models, especially when they influence business decisions. An incorrect approach would be to immediately deploy the model without adequate validation or clear communication of its limitations. This could lead to misinterpretations of results, flawed strategic decisions based on potentially unreliable predictions, and a breach of trust with the business partner. Ethically, it fails to uphold the principle of informed consent and responsible data use. Another incorrect approach might involve overstating the model's predictive power or downplaying potential biases. This is a direct violation of ethical principles related to honesty and integrity in reporting analytical findings. It also risks regulatory scrutiny if the model's outputs are used to make decisions that have discriminatory or unfair impacts. A third incorrect approach could be to focus solely on technical performance metrics without considering the business context or the potential impact on end users. This demonstrates a lack of holistic understanding of the analytical lifecycle and its implications, failing to meet the broader professional responsibility of ensuring data analysis serves a beneficial and ethical purpose. Professionals should adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes understanding the business need, thoroughly validating analytical outputs, and transparently communicating findings and limitations to stakeholders. This involves a continuous feedback loop with the business partner, ensuring that the analytical insights are integrated into decision-making responsibly and ethically. Question 19. Operational review demonstrates that a business partner is utilizing IBM SPSS modeler to analyze client sales data to identify purchasing trends. The partner has access to client names, contact details, and purchase histories to ensure compliance with data privacy regulations and the guidelines of the C2020-012 IBM SPSS Modeler Data Analysis for Business Partners V2 framework. Which of the following actions is the most appropriate to undertake before proceeding with the trend analysis? Option A. Conduct the analysis on the raw client data and then manually remove any sensitive information from the final report before submission. Option B. Share the anonymized analytical model and its findings with other business partners to foster collaborative learning and identify broader market trends. Option C. Anonymize the client data by removing all personally identifiable information, PI, such as names and contact details, and ensure the analysis is strictly confined to aggregated purchasing patterns, documenting the anonymization process. Option D. Proceed with the analysis using the raw client data, assuming that the insights gained will benefit the client and that the data will not be shared externally. The correct answer is C. Anonymize the client data by removing all personally identifiable information, PI such as names and contact details, and ensure the analysis is strictly confined to aggregated purchasing patterns, documenting the anonymization process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient data analysis with the stringent requirements of regulatory compliance, specifically concerning data privacy and security, as mandated by the IBM SPSS Modeler Data Analysis for Business Partners V2 framework. Business partners are entrusted with sensitive client data, and any deviation from established protocols can lead to significant legal repercussions, reputational damage, and loss of trust. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring that the analytical process, while effective, does not inadvertently expose or misuse protected information. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to the established regulatory framework. By implementing robust data anonymization techniques before analysis and ensuring that all data handling processes are documented and auditable, the business partner demonstrates a commitment to both data integrity and regulatory compliance. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of breaches and ensures that the insights derived from the data are obtained ethically and legally. The framework likely emphasizes principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, which are directly addressed by anonymizing data and restricting its use to the defined analytical purpose. An incorrect approach that involves analyzing raw, identifiable client data without explicit consent or appropriate security measures fails to uphold the regulatory standards. This constitutes a direct violation of data privacy principles, potentially leading to unauthorized access and misuse of sensitive information. Another incorrect approach, which involves sharing the analytical model and its outputs with unauthorized third parties, breaches confidentiality agreements and data protection regulations. This exposes client data and proprietary analytical methods to risks of exploitation. A third incorrect approach, which relies on informal data handling practices without proper documentation or oversight, creates an environment ripe for errors and noncompliance, making it impossible to demonstrate adherence to regulatory requirements during an audit. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the relevant regulatory guidelines. Before commencing any data analysis, they must assess the data's sensitivity and identify potential risks. This should be followed by a risk mitigation strategy, which includes selecting appropriate data handling techniques, such as anonymization or pseudonymization, and implementing robust security controls. Documentation of all processes and decisions is crucial for accountability and auditability. Finally, ongoing training and awareness of regulatory changes are essential to maintain compliance. Question 20. Quality control measures reveal that a recently proposed process optimization for client data handling, while technically sound, is encountering significant resistance from business partners due to concerns about workflow disruption and a perceived lack of immediate benefit. What is the most effective strategy to ensure successful adoption and realize the intended improvements? Option A. Implement the optimization in phases, starting with a pilot program involving a subset of business partners, accompanied by clear communication about the benefits and comprehensive training and ongoing support. Option B. Proceed with the optimization as planned, assuming that business partners will adapt over time, and address any issues that arise on a case-by-case basis after full implementation. Option C. Focus exclusively on the technical merits and efficiency gains of the optimized process in all communications, downplaying any potential initial disruptions to workflow. Option D. Mandate immediate, full-scale adoption of the new process across all business partners, without further delay to ensure consistency and minimize the time to realize benefits. The correct answer is A. Implement the optimization in phases, starting with a pilot program involving a subset of business partners, accompanied by clear communication about the benefits and comprehensive training and ongoing support. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in business analytics where a process improvement initiative, while showing initial promise, faces resistance due to perceived disruption and a lack of clear communication regarding its benefits. The challenge lies in balancing the drive for efficiency and data-driven optimization with the human element of change management and stakeholder buy-in. Business partners, often focused on immediate client deliverables, may view process changes as an added burden without understanding the long-term strategic advantages. This requires a nuanced approach that demonstrates the value of the optimization while minimizing disruption. Correct approach analysis. The most effective approach involves a phased implementation of the process optimization, coupled with clear, ongoing communication and targeted training. This strategy acknowledges the need for change while respecting the existing workflows and expertise of the business partners. By demonstrating tangible benefits through pilot programs and providing support, the initiative builds trust and encourages adoption. This aligns with best professional practices by fostering collaboration, ensuring data integrity through controlled implementation, and ultimately leading to more robust and efficient business processes, which is a core objective of data analysis for business partners. The focus on measurable outcomes and iterative improvement ensures that the optimization efforts are aligned with business goals and deliver demonstrable value, a key tenet in data-driven decision-making. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the optimization without prior consultation or a pilot phase would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It disregards the expertise and operational realities of the business partners, potentially leading to errors, non-compliance with client agreements if workflows are disrupted, and a breakdown in trust. This approach fails to uphold the principle of responsible data handling and process management, as it risks introducing inefficiencies or inaccuracies without proper validation. Mandating immediate, full-scale adoption of the new process without adequate training or support is also professionally unacceptable. This can lead to increased errors, reduced productivity, and potential breaches of data security or privacy if the new processes are not understood or followed correctly. Ethically, it fails to provide the necessary resources for employees to perform their duties effectively and safely. Focusing solely on the technical aspects of the optimization and neglecting the impact on business partners' daily operations demonstrates a lack of holistic understanding. This can lead to the optimization being perceived as an academic exercise rather than a practical improvement, resulting in poor adoption and a failure to achieve the intended business benefits. It also risks overlooking potential unintended consequences that could negatively impact client relationships or regulatory compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach process optimization by first understanding the current state, identifying pain points through stakeholder engagement, and then proposing solutions that are data-informed and practically implementable. A phased approach, pilot testing, and continuous feedback loops are crucial. Communication should be transparent, highlighting the why behind the changes and the expected benefits for both the business and its clients. Training and support should be tailored to the needs of the users. This iterative and collaborative method ensures that optimizations are effective, sustainable, and ethically sound, minimizing risks and maximizing value.